everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our February Growth Workshop. Today, we will be teaching you the ways to ensure that your tax and accounting practice is secure. First, I would like to introduce our presenters. So Lee, please start.
Thank you, Katie. So security is obviously a big issue for all tax and accounting professionals. A recent AICPA survey stated that managing privacy and security risks as a top 5 issue across all respondents. So that's from sole proprietors up to the large firms. So accountants need to act on the basis that their security will be compromised, and we're going to go a lot of different issues today that will hopefully protect you from that happening.
And my name is Katie Smith, and I am your Customer Success Ambassador here at CountingWorks Pro. Security, it's a very important topic that we all need to take very seriously, so I'm happy we are addressing it today.
And I am Steve Anderson. I'm the Senior Business Development Manager here, and I'm glad to be a part of this as well. It's a very important topic for the consumer and for the business owner.
As I'm sure most of you know, CPAs, enrolled agents, and tax professionals are some of the most attractive targets to hackers. This is because these shady players, if you will, know you are dealing with sensitive client information. So on today's agenda, we will be covering topics like how you can protect you and your clients, some common phishing techniques, the best security policies to follow, and we'll also share with you how our security policy template can help you establish your own internal policies. Lastly, we'll cover some next steps you can take away. This workshop is approximately 30 minutes long. There will be no CPE credit. We will hold Q&A at the end of the workshop. This workshop is designed for US-based small tax and accounting practices. However, any other business or practice may benefit. Lee, take it away.
All right, thank you, Katie. So let's get into the intro. I'm going to reference another survey that the Virginia Society of CPAs did. Over 8,500 CPAs spoke to this survey. 78% of respondents rate cybersecurity a significant concern, with 19% revealing their organization has been a victim of a cyber attack in the last year. I think those are pretty eye-opening numbers. I'm assuming every one of you has had a phishing email. You're getting used to, deciding what is what, but it's obviously a large issue. So we put together this workshop to review some of the top-level issues that you can address now. One of the issues, obviously, is the profession is in the crosshairs. Obviously, there's a lot of, the tax return data, getting refunds, social security numbers, identity theft. There's a lot of different ways that a hacker or a criminal can go after both you and your clients, right? So your clients may have their identity stolen. We're going to talk about how you deal with that. Obviously, protecting against fraudulent tax returns, and the big one, professionals getting hit with spoofing emails. So as we always say, never let your guard down, and it won't happen to my practice. So we're hoping to kind of address some of those issues now. So first of all, and it's not just us, but I think the IRS, I took this from the IRS site, is protect your clients, protect yourself. So one thing you may not know, we've had a campaign going, so many of you are aware, but the Federal Trade Commission has a safeguards rule that tax return preparers must create and enact security plans to protect client data. So this is not an optional thing, this is the law. So failure to do so may result in an FTC investigation. So every practice is responsible for developing their own list of red flags based on their own specific methods and business operations. So meaning one size does not fit all, right? And we've put together, and there will be a free download. I think we've had over 1,000 downloads of this already, but many of you have already taken advantage and downloaded our security template. But it just is a guide. So everyone does business a little bit differently. So you can use our security template and kind of fine tune it to fit your practice's needs. So let's talk about some phishing facts. This is more on the phishing emails, and I think this is important just to think about. I know most of you are aware of receiving these, so here's some stats. 71.4% of targeted attacks involve some use of what's called spear phishing emails, and we'll show some examples of there. 64% of organizations have experienced a phishing attack in the past year, and of course, finance has faced 59% of phishing attacks in the Americas. So I think this is the fear, right? This is the big challenge that we face. And one of the problems is it's easy than you think to protect yourself, because 63% of confirmed data breaches involve weak, default, or stolen passwords, and that's according to Verizon. So these are just some basic facts, not trying to scare everyone, but we all know in the digital age, this is a legitimate threat to us. So let's jump in here. And this is number one. I've seen some statistics, how many tax and accounting pros are still sending files via email. It's somewhat shocking. And before I go into all of the bullet points here, I'm just going to say why email isn't secure. So I'm going to read some definitions so you get a general idea. But email, when it was created, was not meant to be the center of our digital lives. It was more of using the internet to standardize the way people stored images and were able to forward images back and forth between computers. So it was always transferred completely in the open, meaning everything was readable, but anyone could watch network traffic or access accounts. And that's the idea of having a password breached and someone logging into your actual account, right? So originally, not even passwords were encrypted, okay? So amazingly, email, sent using these wide open methods still mostly works, right? So people are used to email. It's a way they communicate. But you really got to step back and decide when you're using email to communicate and when you're using different secure encrypted type of technology. So today there's 4 basic places where most people's email can be compromised. It can be compromised on your devices, on your networks, on the server, and on your recipient's device. So there's obviously many touch points there that make it a challenge for professionals to be able to protect themselves. So there's a bunch of different ways, like traditional hacks are really not the norm. It's really poor password management. So, and we'll talk about some ways that you can protect your passwords and your usernames. But basically, if a hacker gains access to your email, they can then control and start sending out spoof emails to your entire client base. So we've seen that multiple times from our own users. We know what a phishing email looks like, a spoof email. So what that means is they're actually sending an email it's kind of masking that is coming from you, but they're sending, the hackers controlling the content that's in that email. And that's what's called a spoof email. So someone is more likely to open an email from their CPA per se. So that's kind of that's the real big challenge. So you need to keep private client files private, right? And we're going to talk about different ways to do that. So I did put together a couple different samples. I have some client samples here of ransom emails, IRS emails, and the way phishing emails work. But there's obvious flaws in these, using the word IRS versus U.S. Treasury. But they're pretty sophisticated. Someone might think that, these are actual emails from the IRS. So your clients need to be aware of it. You and your staff need to be aware of it. Here's a sample ransom email. This is a current letter campaign that's going out. So it's physical letter. And, it's getting harder and harder to tell, what is wrong with it. We know that you're not making checks payable to I.R.S. and it's going to the U.S. Treasury. You're not going to say you may send us your payment immediately to avoid additional interest and penalties. There's certain things that are a part of these that kind of red flag it. But these are things that are being used right now by fraudsters and hackers. So you need to be aware of it. Now, if you're looking for something that is how they attack you, a lot of times it's a different attachment. I have seen reports of people putting their resume together saying, hey, I'm an intern, I went to a local college, and they're emailing you from someone you don't know, right? But they have an attachment and it might be a resume. That's one way. This is the other way. Hey, CPA, I need an experienced, high quality accountant. And obviously there's ways that these are written that it's just obvious that they are fake. But who would say, attach my tax documents, please advise, right? And by that means, why would you open that attachment? So these are kind of the main red flags to look for. These are 3 good examples to kind of make yourself more aware. And it's not just making you aware, it's also making you and your staff aware. So you're only as strong as your weakest link. So it's definitely something you need to make sure that everyone from the front desk to other partners are following the same protocol. So if you're using our system, if you're using another portal, the reason secure client portals work is they are protected by SSL security. And I'm going to kind of define what SSL security is so you understand the difference. So an SSL certificate creates a secure link between a website and a visitor's browser by ensuring that all data passed between the two remains private and secure. So SSL encryption prevents hackers from stealing private information such as tax returns, social security numbers, and contact info. So all of our sites are protected by SSL, and we use another thing called reCAPTCHA technology to help kind of protect. It's not perfect, but it's AI-based protection that kind of says, hey, someone's hitting your contact us or your newsletter opt-in forms, and we have some tools and controls to try to keep that from actually making it through. Again, it's not foolproof, but it does work. I know Katie had some insight too on why the client portal is so important, so I'll just throw that over to her.
Yes, thank you, Lee. Really what it comes down to, the amount of fraud being perpetrated against businesses is getting worse. And that's both in the terms of number of instances and the amount of money that is being lost. And this is why it's so important to have a secured portal for your business. Clients are looking for more security, and your clients need to rest easy knowing that your business takes cybersecurity issues very seriously. And that's just really what I wanted to add to this slide. Thank you, Lee.
Yeah, and you'll notice I messed up on the page numbers. I added a last-minute email sample of a phishing email that targeted you guys, but I didn't update the page numbers, of course. But so don't be confused. Yes, we just repeated a page number. So I'm going to continue on. So best office policies for security, and this is coming to, and I have some funny things to show you in a second. But if you're still using paper documentation, I know some of you are. You have to have a shredder in your office, right? It needs to be a shredder that doesn't overheat, obviously, but make that part of your office. I know most of you do, but just either that or you can use shredding services that are certified, that there's no chain of command missing, that you could actually lose, where those tax returns or those documents go. But definitely add a shredder. Install an office security system. Camera surveillance is very inexpensive now. These are ways to deter thieves. Crooks often target CPA offices or other accounting firms because obviously they know there's a ton of data there that they steal. They're going to have social security numbers, financial data. It's almost a bonanza of information, right? This is one that's kind of something people don't think about, but sometimes they write down clients' personal information on Post-it notes, or they leave it on their desk and cleaning crews come in after hours. That's an easy way for people to have their data compromised, right? If you if you use file cabinets, make sure they're secure and locked. And this is the thing, going back to the sticky notes here, do not write usernames or passwords on sticky notes near your computer. And obviously, if anyone breaks in, that would make it very easy for them to actually compromise your device. So these are different things to think about as you move forward. And I said I wanted to bring up something that is hard to believe, but there was a big story, and this was some years ago, a CPA in Fremont, California. Actually, I think they were selling the practice or closing the practice or just cleaning out. I forget the specifics, but they literally threw hundreds of old tax returns, years worth, with all the personal information in the trash bin in the back of the office. Luckily, someone saw it, created a fuss about it. The news actually caught onto it, and this is an actual news story of them going through the bins with the actual tax returns sitting in the bin. So I'll just say, use your shredder. Don't be this person. The liability here is immense. And, obviously your reputation is way too important, the trust you have. So this is a real story. This really happened, believe it or not. So securing your digital office. So I know Steve's going to jump in here a little bit, but I want to go through a couple different things before he does. One, and I keep talking about shredders. It's not just shredders for your actual files or paper files. If you sell or upgrade a computer, if you in any way dispose of a computer, you want to shred that hard drive. So you can wipe it clean, but if you're getting rid of it, you don't want to have any opportunity for someone to be able to go in, even though you've deleted things, and find things. There's a lot of different technology that can do that. We recommend, especially if you're in California, a vendor called eWasteSecurity.com. They also have a lot of best practices on why this is important. That's one thing. Also on your staff, we use Checker.com to do background checks for all of our hires, and it's the same technology that we use for our TaxBuzz background checks. It's very inexpensive, or relatively inexpensive, but make sure you're not hiring a staff member who has a record. or has some spotted past that you didn't know about, that would be kind of little red flags. So these are kind of the main things. We have talked about SSL certificates on your website. Another one I suggest is VPN networks. So these are just some of the best practices. But Steve, I know you wanted to jump in here as well.
Absolutely. This is a huge conversation of mine. One of the things that we look at is making sure that you're not only aware of what you do have and what you don't have, but also talking to your clients about it. Let them know what's going on and what you've done. It's a good way to make them feel a little more comfortable, but also make them realize, or let them realize, how important it is for security. As I speak with a lot of people, security is and should be of the utmost importance. And then also, with that being said, you got to remember it only has to happen once to your business before it makes a huge impact. And I think that we always look at it might happen to somebody else until it happens to you.
Right, and that's obvious, and and it could happen to any of us, right? So I mean, I know some very successful business owners, CFOs have been fallen to the CEO is requesting a wire transfer of hundreds of thousands of dollars to a third party, someone to spoof their email, the CEO's email. The CFO then says, "Hey, are you sure I can get this set up?" Does the wire, and it ends up that was a spoofed email, and that wire is gone. And I know personally someone that has happened to, and they are uberly successful people, and they fell for it. So there's a lot of different things to keep your guard up at all times. A couple things, personally, lock your screen when it's idle. Sometimes my iMac, for whatever reason, does not go to sleep like it's supposed to. I actually put it to sleep automatically every time I leave my office. Nothing worse than you come back in and the computer is wide open. A cleaning crew, whoever could get in there, an employee or a partner who's off to do some malicious things. So think about that. Two-part authentication. We're actually adding that. That's in our roadmap of our product. As soon as 2.0 gets farther along, we'll have that in. But you can use that on your payroll software. QuickBooks uses it. There's a lot of different ways. I think if it's an option, use the two-part authentication. Sometimes it can be a pain if you don't have your phone on you, and it can create some grief, but it's definitely a good way to do it. Don't use secure or unsecure, non-secure public Wi-Fi networks. All it takes is the ability for someone watching your keystrokes through that, and then now they know your passwords, right? So watch out for that. There is cybersecurity insurance. We have it for our business as well. And then we're going to talk about security accounts, passwords, updating them, and kind of some best practices. But these are the ways you can secure your digital office. So now we're going to pivot a little bit to identity thieves, the IRS, and your clients. I've alluded to this before. The IRS and the FTC have taken steps to combat fraud resulting from identity theft. So if any of your own clients' social security numbers are part of a breach, please direct them to the IRS identity theft website. It is IRS form 14039. My guess is every single one of you has had that experience and already knows this. If not, I'm just sharing this information. Obviously tax professionals are often in the middle of it. So you need to be able to help both your individuals and your business owners who are victims to combat this, right? So you want to make them feel secure. There's different ways the IRS now has, and they've cut down the fraud dramatically in the last several years. I think 2014 was a peak year, and each year it seems to be getting a little bit better. But these are just different things you need to do when dealing with the identity thieves, and again, reporting to the IRS. So take the following steps when this occurs, right? So if the client has received an IRS notice, obviously respond immediately. There is the IRS theft affidavit. That's the 14039. Recognize that this is not just a federal issue. Most likely the state return might be affected as well if there is one. So definitely think about that. If you need to represent your client before the IRS, make sure you have a power of attorney signed before trying to make contact, right? So these are kind of the normal logical steps. So this goes into kind of the main thing we're trying to do is make sure you guys are all compliant with the FTC rules. So establishing your mandatory IRS security policy manual. We have in the email for the invite for this and the follow-up emails, we will include the link to the security policy manual. It's basically a template. We are not attorneys, so we're not vouching as if it was written by an attorney, but we took some time to find all the different red flags that we could think of, and most of the common things that you could use to establish your own security policy. I think it's worth the time to, one, get the policy in place so you're compliant, but two, have a short 30-minute training session with all of your staff going over what a phishing email looks like. Yeah, like Microsoft resets, Google email, Rackspace if you're on our system, lots of phishing emails out there. It's pretty obvious now what is fake. Amazon, they do it. They use all the main brands, right? But it's definitely worth the training time. So spend a little time, maybe review the policy template that you've created with each staff member, maybe even have them sign it. It's I know it's a little time consuming, but it's definitely worth protecting yourself. And each firm is responsible for developing its own list of red flags. So we're going to give you what we consider the best, but you might be able to, make adjustments to it wherever you want. Each business must include every situation they can envision, right? So, we're giving you the guidelines. Again, make it the way you want it. So I definitely think if you have not downloaded this already and you don't have a security policy in place, please take advantage of our free tool. And here it is. So download our free security template. I have the URL here. It's the info.countyworkspro.com/security-compliance. Again, this is included in the email invite, and we'll send it to you afterwards. But this is helping you be compliant, and it's one of the takeaways from this workshop today. So next steps, create your security policy with our downloadable template, right? So if you haven't downloaded it already or don't have one, please do so. Do some training, make sure your digital office is secure. We gave you some tips on how to do that. Practice better office policies for security. Shredders, hard drive shredders, these are different ways you might not have thought about. That are other ways people get compromised, right? And obviously never use the trash bins in your office to get rid of tax returns. And then use the CountyWorks Pro portal to send client files and communicate with your clients. Those are protected by SSL, and that's kind of the main thing. So please do not send email, unsecure email. It's just not a best practice, and you're opening yourself up to liability, and worse, just a horrible client experience if it did in fact get compromised. So that's the basics for this workshop. I think we're going to run into some Q&A. Katie, I think we have time. We're trying to keep this around 30 minutes today, so I think we have time for 3 questions.
Great. Well, we already have 3 that have come in. The first question is, what do you suggest for password policies?
Yeah, and I think that's good. Obviously, a good question. We have written a blog article about this on CountyWorks Pro, but the kind of the answer to, there's a reason that some systems include kind of a periodic mandatory password reset. I know it's a huge pain. I get upset with some vendors the way they do it, and you can't use passwords that you've used before. But some of them have a maximum number of failed responses. We do 3 before we lock you out. So if you're ever on our own portal and you've messed up twice in a row, hit reset password and just reset your password. Otherwise, you can get locked out for an hour before it opens up again. But passwords that are too simple or easy to guess can cause a nightmare if compromised, right? So, for example, and this is a true story. We assisted a client or actually it was a few clients with GoDaddy who their accounts were compromised. And what happened is the hackers went in and pointed their DNS or A record information to a spam site. And first of all, it was very embarrassing, but it also opened up their client base to be compromised if they actually did anything on this site. So, we have helped those clients who had their email accounts hacked and suspended. So there's a bunch of things that you need to worry about. But either way, security problems are stressful, but they are necessary if you want to practice better management of your passwords, right? So here's, I call it 7 easy steps to use. Number 1, the longer the password, the harder it is to break. And obviously it's harder to remember, but if you come up with some sort of concept that you can replicate across different accounts, that is long and is not something that someone would be able to guess, that's going to help you. So at least 6 characters long. Most are actually now requiring it, and having characters that are in there is 2. So number 2 is, as a general rule, the following characters. So I'll give you some character examples. Uppercase letters, lowercase, so combining uppercase and lowercase, using numbers 1, 2, 3. Don't put them in a sequence. Special characters, so an exclamation point, an and, a question mark. There's a bunch of different ways that you can make a password much more difficult for AI to guess, or even just a traditional hacker trying to figure it out, right? 3, use anti-malware software to protect your browser from keystroke attacks. That happens more often than you would think, and that's where you're like, how did this happen? How did someone get my passwords? And a lot of times you have malware there. Don't share passwords with non-essential contacts. That is obviously a no-no, but it happens. Change passwords on a regular basis. Don't use the same password for all accounts. I think this is one of the biggest takeaways. We see it. So think about it. If they get your password in one location, they obviously have your email. So let's say they hack your email now and they know your password. They could go start guessing which bank accounts, credit card companies, you name it. They can start trying to access all of that information. And they can figure that out by reading their email if your email was compromised. So that opens you up to a bigger problem than just an inconvenience, so to speak. And then obviously always remember to log off before you leave a public workstation. I have gone to, I was at an event and they logged into a public workstation and we had to use it to subscribe to a specific service for a sporting event or something. And the workstation I came on was completely logged into that person's email account and everything. I could have gone in and gone to town. So you got to remember, if you use something like that, don't forget to log out and get yourself out of there, sign out, right? So those are some of the quick things we do have on countyworkspro.com. If you go to our blog, just search security or password security, and we have a much longer in-depth article about this.
All right. Second question, should I use a password manager app?
That's a good question because I have a personal experience with them that is good and bad. So the answer to me is maybe. A lot of people will tell you, IT people, there's a best practice to use them. So I'll give you some pros. Pros are you don't struggle to come up with clever encrypted passwords anymore, right? That you have a hard time remembering. The apps will do that for you. With a secure and easy use password manager, you can actually manage your login credentials across all devices, keeping your passwords secure. The cons, of course, is what if that app gets compromised or hacked, and it has happened. You can Google that and see. The best option to look at, I have used LastPass, and I liked it. They may have had an issue, so I like the tool. It's only $36 a year. It's funny, you'll see others out there. If you Google best password managers, $35, $95 is the price per year. But the LastPass is a very credible, trustworthy brand that I have used in the past. But again, if you want to search that up, go to Google best password managers and take a look at the options.
All right. And then the last question is, what is a VPN?
So I did mention firewalls and VPNs. A VPN basically is a virtual private network, and it lets you log in and browse the internet anonymously. And what it does is it adds security and privacy on public networks. Sometimes you might run into problems with a VPN that, based on where that VPN says you're coming from, certain security at certain websites might block you. But as a practice, especially if you're traveling, a VPN can be a great tool. So we actually have an employee who is one of our content managers, and she travels across the world. She uses a VPN when she's overseas. So think about the times you've used a public connection at a hotel, maybe a Starbucks. That is a good place to use a VPN, right? So a VPN allows encryption. It basically scrambles data when it's sent over Wi-Fi network. So this encryption makes the data unreadable. That is why you would want to use a VPN. Best options to look at, our employee uses ExpressVPN. If you read reviews, Express seems to be the best reviewed. It works great and has a lot of different locations. So it's a good tool. But again, Google best VPN providers to compare for yourself and kind of go through the list. So I hope this has been worthwhile. I know it's kind of a non-topic about marketing and growing your practices. We're going to kind of pivot back to that here in the future and really get into some in-depth. We have a lot of great new tools that are coming out, specifically with Google My Business, that I think you guys are going to be very excited about. So if you have any questions, visit our website at countyworkspro.com. You always can call us at 800-442-2477. Our Help desk is extension 4. Again, all VIP clients, we have a special help desk for you. Email vip@countyworkspro.com. Again, thank you for joining us today, and I hope that you have a very successful tax season. Thank you.
Have a great day.